Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel, and thanks for logging on. Today, we're discussing the Breguet Classique Power Reserve, reference 5277 in 18-karat white gold. You can see this handsome 96-hour Power Reserve manual winding men's dress watch on our website. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you enjoy these videos, and please click on the card in the upper right-hand corner of the screen at any time during this video to see our full sales listing for this ultra-thin men's dress watch with additional accessories included in the sale, high-resolution images for your desktop, and naturally complete pricing details for this Breguet 5277 Power Reserve. Now the Classique line is traditional, but I'm not going to say traditional to a fault because this watch incorporates some original thinking, thoughtful design, attention to detail, and mechanical refinement. This is the full package. Now on my wrist, it's a versatile size, 38 millimeters, 38.4 as my caliper reads it. The difference between the rated size and the actual size being that lip where the bezel meets the mid-case and the case back meets the mid-case, it cantilevers out a bit on both sides. So the watch has a very slightly larger diameter than the 38 for which it's rated. It is thin, however. There's no getting around that. It will clear any dress cuff. First, there's that beautiful domed rounded profile of the bezel, so no issues with tight sleeves. But it is just objectively thin at 8 millimeters thick. Perhaps I should call it 8 millimeters thin. From lug to lug, a very reasonable span across the wrist. My wrist 16 centimeters in circumference, and the watch 46 millimeters from lug to lug across the wrist. I'd say you could wear this watch on a wrist as small as 13.5 centimeters in circumference. Now the timepiece does have a satisfying weight to it. In spite of the fact that it is minimalist, you still know you're wearing a gold watch. You never forget it. And the strap, fortunately, is very traditional in that it uses straight spring bars, and actually I should say they're not spring bars because screws are used, not spring bars, to fix the strap to the lugs. But all the same, the bars are straight, and therefore there's no constraint to the movement of the strap. It pulls straight down around the curve of a small wrist. This is a good match for smaller wrists on that basis as well. The strap itself is black. It is matte, large rectangular scale alligator leather. The larger and the more rectangular, the more expensive the alligator leather. So we often talk about alligator versus calf for dress watch, gator being more durable and more expensive, but even amongst gator materials, the large rectangular scales are objectively just more expensive and more opulent, and this watch has them. You can see folded edges, monotone stitch, calfskin on the underside, the supple side that touches your wrist, and then a simple Breguet white gold pin buckle to match the style of the watch. Now the watch does have style, though it's minimalist. The details are abundant and they are gratifying. As you can see, the cold rolled coining of the case flank, that's done on cold metal and then hand finished to create the pattern you see there. The lugs are traditional, straight. They are effectively the look of a antiquarian sensibility. Did Breguet ever make watches that looked exactly like this? No, not really, but the Breguet look as we know it today was pioneered by Daniel Roth when he was the lead watchmaker at Breguet during the 70s and 80s, and he managed to fuse the look of Abraham Louis Breguet's pocket watches into an aesthetic that was suitable for a wristwatch, and the fusion of those two threads of history is what you see here. So we continue from that highly stylized case and lugs to a dial that is beautifully executed. Let's be clear, it is a gold dial that has been silvered. Rose lathe guilloche, as opposed to the stamped kind, is what Breguet uses. So a rose lathe is operated by a combination of hand guidance, the guillocher, and artisan, who is also an expert freehand artist sketching and then programming the lathe to create the pattern you see here. It's a combination of freehand guidance and cams that creates the etching you see. Now there is a hobnail at center, and you can see it's a very fine hobnail texture, and you'll note that there's a dimple style minutes track outboard of the hour track with a concentric circular satin finish that runs underneath the stylized Breguet style Roman numerals. The hands for the hours, minute, and seconds, as well as the 96-hour Power Reserve, are heat-blued steel, the real thing, not chemically dyed, and you'll note some of the quirky features of the modern Breguet dials, including the secret signature flanking both sides of numeral 12. The timepiece is simple, easy to read, not a sports watch, but quite clear. It's one of the less complicated and perhaps more functional Breguet dials. Because of the paucity of details, they stand out. Now turning the watch over, a beautifully finished movement that is nevertheless a little bit quirky. It's quirky because this is the Breguet caliber 515 DR which I believe to be based on the Frédéric Piguet 1106, itself a manual wind version of the twin mainspring barrel long power reserve Frédéric Piguet 1150 family. So you can see that the bridge architecture appears a little bit barren, beautifully finished with true abrasive wheel Côte de Genève and hand-finished mirrored anglage at the edge of every bridge, and you can see that anglage to good effect from this angle. You'll also note that all the screw heads are black polished, so tremendous finish, just an unusual architecture because we're not used to seeing display casebacks on top of de-automatized or manualized automatic movements. Now, that said, it does include some contemporary technology in the form of a free-sprung balance, which the original caliber 1106 did not include. So you have the free-sprung balance for shock resistance and a silicon hairspring for anti-magnetism. Moreover, the balance is beating away at 28,800 vibrations per hour, a modern beat rate, and the twin mainspring barrels endow the watch with a 96-hour power reserve. The other advantage of having twin mainspring barrels is that they have a very even torque release, progressive and consistent from full wind to basically drop-dead exhaustion. So you have even and precise timing throughout the duration of that 96-hour power reserve. It doesn't run very fast and then run very slow. Even more impressive is the fact that this movement, pivoting on 23 joules, is adjusted in 6 positions, which is one more than a typical chronometer. I'll get a little bit closer now so we can see some of the finer details of this dial, or I should say this movement. I wish I could wear it on the dial side. Now I turn flush to the camera and you can really see the gleam of the edge of all the bridges and the anglage execution. You can also see how all the screw heads turn from bright polished silver to black as I move them flush to the camera. That's the black polish of which I spoke. Finally, now that we're a little bit closer, you can see the engine turning, the perlage on the base plate below the balance. The finishing on the mainspring barrels, the components that you can only partially see, is excellent. And I'll also say that the jewel countersinks are just as nicely finished as the edges of all of the bridges. The detailing of the wheels is very, very good. I would say this is on par with what you would get from the likes of Audemars Piguet or premium models from Jaeger-LeCoultre and Girard-Perregaux. In other words, it is very competitive and some of the best finishing you'll see from Valet du Jeu manufacturers. It does not feature hacking seconds, but what it does feature is a rather clever, as you can see, kerf underneath the crown. That's the parting shot I want to leave with you. It has a small slot into which you can insert your fingernail to more easily gain purchase on the crown. That is the attention to detail that Breguet has wrought on this piece. And you'll also note the rose lathe engraving in the caseback itself. No detail left unadorned. Simple, functional, memorable, and elegant. You can see and you can purchase this Breguet Classique Power Reserve 5277 in 18 karat white gold on our website.